Did you know that in Pokémon Legends Z-A, Lumiose City's redevelopment plan may have stranded this guy's cab on a part of the city that is potentially only accessible by foot? Or that old ladies are getting attacked by wild Pokemon while trying to visit their loved ones' graves? When I chanced upon these issues and many others that are equally hilarious, I instantly asked myself, wow, is the Lumiose City redevelopment plan even possible to execute? And before I knew it, I had this video done on that very topic, so please join me on a deep dive of the redevelopment plan. Or, don't join me, that's cool too. Don't let me tell you what to do. But, assuming you choose to join me, let's go. The Urban Redevelopment Plan is a novel and, in my opinion, awesome idea, but it's definitely been creating some very funny problems for the Lumiose City populace. The truth is, for all the good that it does, this plan is still a logistical nightmare that may not even be possible to fully execute. In order for us to have enough material to analyze this possibility, I'll be covering the key good points of the redevelopment plan alongside the negative aspects, before then weighing them all together to hopefully reach an answer to the question I posed. And yeah, this will be an analysis from the lore side of things. The truth is, none of this matters or is relevant in any way to the player, as a player, nor are the negative aspects actual problems with the game. In fact, I would wager that some of the questionable decisions we'll cover here were taken specifically because ultimately they generate a better game experience for the player. But regardless of whether or not this impacts gameplay, and it doesn't, I hope you'll still give the topic a chance and put yourself in the shoes of the Lumiose citizens. If you're anything like me, you absolutely won't regret it. I'll also elaborate on the whole guy being stranded in Lumiose thing, and trust me, it is a hilarious oversight within Quasarticle's plans. Before we really get started though, a warning, this video contains spoilers for the game. I won't talk about what happens in the story and how it ends, but I will show the map of the game as it is by the end of the game. Unfortunately, a certain part of the complete map can be considered a spoiler to one big endgame event in the game, and I can't avoid that. So if you have yet to beat Pokémon Legends Z-A, maybe bookmark this video and come back to it later. So, who created the Lumiose City redevelopment plan? What does it do, and how did it ultimately lead to a stranded cabbie, old ladies being attacked by wild Pokemon when visiting friends' graves, and even people constantly being laid out all over the city by wild Pokemon? If you're thinking, wow, that's quite an escalation in his previous sentence, that's because, yeah, it's a big escalation. You start wanting to improve the city, and suddenly people are being harassed in graveyards or being knocked out as they proceed with their routines. I can already picture something that might have become routine for these people. For example, you're a parent and you get a call from school saying, "Hey Susan, your kid didn't make it to school, is she alright?" "Oh, my kid probably just got knocked out by a wild Tyranitar on the way there, just nothing to worry about. Routine, really." Look, I firmly think the Lumiose redevelopment plan is a good idea, but with a very questionable execution by both the mayor and Quasarticle. Basically, the plan aims to transform Lumiose into a city where both people and Pokemon can coexist in peace. It will potentially be the first of its kind throughout the world and employs the use of wild zones, basically cordoned off sections of the city to house the wild Pokemon. Now that I think about it, this kinda made Lumiose the world's biggest zoo, didn't it? Another important aspect to New Lumiose is the Z-A Royale, which, while not officially a part of the redevelopment plan, at least I don't think it is created by Quasarticle and it is intertwined with the actual redevelopment plan, so we will be exploring that here too. From what I can tell, the plan had two main reasons to come into fruition. The first is told to us by Mabel right in the beginning of the game. She says that for some reason there is an influx of wild Pokemon coming to the city. If that's true, it kinda forces the city officials to either chase the Pokemon off or create a plan to coexist safely. The second reason is that the event 5 years ago, the one in X and Y, drove people out of the city, if not out of Kalos as a whole, and as such, there is a need to revitalize Lumios and get people to move back in. And if you're wondering about the source for the second reason, well, it's this random, very disgruntled person who's complaining that we shouldn't be filling up the city with Pokemon just because people left. Now that I say this out loud, maybe a disgruntled citizen serving as a single source to one of the bases of my theory is not the best idea, but screw it, I'm going with that. On a side note, I am glad that some of my old professors aren't around to hear me say this. I graduated in journalism and they would be mortified for sure. Anyway, the redevelopment plan was conceived to, amongst other goals, fix these issues, and you know, to give credit where it's due, it did fix them. The problem is, it created a lot of new problems in the process, but hey, you can't make an omelette without breaking a few or many eggs, am I right? Problems aside though, it wouldn't, in my opinion, be an exaggeration to say that the redevelopment plan may indeed be saving the whole city. Now, I'm not an urban planner, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that if there's a mass exodus from, well, anywhere really, a lot of things are negatively affected, from economy to tourism, production, etc. According to that one random disgruntled and super trustworthy person that I'm using as a source for everything, many people were leaving the city due to Lysander's actions, serving as a catalyst to the negative consequences I mentioned. As such, a redevelopment plan that changes the city and introduces it to a whole new and novel way to live your daily life doesn't just mean physical changes to the city, but it also means revitalizing it to potentially unprecedented levels. This doesn't just attract people back, but it also symbolically shows the people of Kalos, and hell, the people of the whole world, that Kalos is moving on from the disaster caused by Lysander, as it's even able to pour money into redeveloping its biggest city. A new city to celebrate a new beginning, if you want to put it in a more poetic way. And this brings a lot of other benefits in tow that I'll get into right now. But the bottom line is, everything the redevelopment plan is doing brings quite a few benefits, and they all may just be enough to save the city. One big benefit is the money. You see, proving to the world that Kalos is moving on and setting an example on how to handle a crisis isn't just good to attract new citizens to Lumios. It's also a great way to show potential investors that the city and the whole damn region are worthy of their attention. And in fact, we do already see some of that in effect, as Quasarticle, the company leading the redevelopment plan, is a foreign company, at least according to this one random kid who distrusts the company due to that reason. Furthermore, the financial benefits don't just come from companies, they come from people too. If you're from Kanto, for example, and you get the news that a huge city just turned into the world's biggest Pokemon zoo, you would likely want to visit and get a look at it for yourself. This is a long-winded way to say that tourism has the potential to rise quite a bit, and in fact, at the end of the game, Mabel confirms that's exactly what's happening, saying that the mayor is throwing more money into the redevelopment plan because the wild zones are hit with tourists. But this is to be expected. When you have a truly unique experience on your hands, people will want to see and live it. While the monetary benefits are arguably the best ones as they allow continuous progress in the redevelopment, there are other less obvious benefits too. One very important benefit for the scientists in the audience is the many new avenues that become available for research. Introducing a bunch of wild Pokemon to the city life experience seems unprecedented in the Pokemon world, at least to the scale that's done in Lumios. The wild Pokemon have likely never been in this situation or environment, which results in a goldmine of new research possibilities for those in the science field. How does each species behave in their new home? How does each species behave in regards to each other? Why are Sableyes jumping old ladies while they are just trying to visit their dead loved ones? All of these are very valid questions that absolutely need answers, and only the researchers can provide them. And in fact, we actually live through the consequence of this redevelopment plan with Mabel's research. We help Mabel gather information as she lacks the personnel to properly study the rapidly changing city environment, something that often makes her rightfully and hilariously mad. But it's not just scientists and enthusiasts that are encouraged to learn more about Pokemon. Oh no. If you think about it, the general populace is also encouraged to do so. I mean, if you're gonna live alongside Pokemon, might as well learn about them to truly make coexisting a pleasant experience, right? Quite a few people love Pokemon, so to them, this would be a very nice benefit. Others, however, might take a bit more convincing. But regardless, if the redevelopment plan is to truly thrive, people will need free and effective education regarding Pokemon. Maybe this is what will finally end the job of that one guy that carries people that were knocked out by wild Pokemon to Pokemon centers. Who knows? I'm sure he wouldn't mind. Carrying people who are passed out must be quite depressing and perhaps even creepy. One last great upside to the redevelopment plan that I would also like to highlight is the Z-A Royale. Alongside the whole wild zones thing, this is also a great opportunity for tourism, this time from battle maniacs all over the world, and a great chance to do some new research. The Royale is a new experience after all, so it should allow new studies such as how humans react when having a continuous tournament within a city, if the rules are respected when no one is inspecting them, I don't know. But I think the greatest benefit to the Royale is that, as two very prominent figures in our ZA storyline mentioned, the competition has the potential to help create a whole new generation of very strong trainers, capable of accomplishing many incredible feats. After all, when you train by joining what's essentially a free-for-all in a city, you learn a lot of things. Resilience, as the competition happens every day during the night, restraint and precision, as you have to be careful and effective with your moves so as to not destroy city property, awareness, as if you're not paying attention you can simply get randomly knocked out like the thousands of NPCs I've wrecked during the Royale, the list goes on. I would wager that all of this creates a strong generation of trainers that will then go out into the world and accomplish great things, like, I don't know, beating Whitney's Miltank. These incredibly difficult feats will, in return, bring more tourism and people to Lumiose, as aspiring trainers will see the effectiveness of the Royale and move there to participate and also become strong. Plus, strong trainers will allow any city, not just Lumiose, to be protected from threats of any nature. Well, okay, almost any nature, but I don't think anyone can do anything about a city spontaneously blowing up or something, but the odds of that happening are pretty slim, I hope. So yeah, as I think I've managed to show, the redevelopment plan has the potential to bring a lot of benefits to Lumiose City, so long as it's properly implemented. And I'm sure the mayor of the biggest city in Kalos and a massive company would both be very cautious and careful with the implementation of such a colossal and delicate plan, right? Oh. Oh no. Well, I guess it's time to explore the downsides to the plan, or specifically to the implementation of the plan, as most of these seem to be rooted in sheer incompetence from the powers that be. I guess in a twisted way this makes Lumiose quite a realistic city, huh? To start off the topic, there are a few approaches we could take, but I think the most effective one would be to start at what I perceive to be the root of a lot of issues that arose from the implementation of the plan. Not the incompetence I just mentioned, but rather what the incompetence caused that, in turn, resulted in a lot of the other issues. Now that I said that out loud, it sounds way more confusing than it actually is, so let me explain. I'm talking specifically about the lack of information regarding the development plan. So the management inaptitude resulted in, amongst other issues, a lack of information publicly available regarding the redevelopment plan, which in turn caused a lot of the issues we are going to discuss here. That's why I wanted to start by talking about this lack of information, because since it's the root of a lot of issues, understanding it will be the key to understanding the rest. Or at least my perception of the rest, because at the end of the day this really is just my interpretation of a situation presented to us by the game. So what do I mean exactly when I say that not enough information about the redevelopment plan is provided to the public? Well, I think the best way to show this is with an example. When you first enter Mabel's lab, you catch her calling the mayor a short-sighted nitwit. Turns out she's pissed that the mayor is adding more money into the redevelopment plan, as you just can't throw around wild Pokemon into a wild zone and call it a day. No, you have to have scientists survey and study these things to figure out what's safe. However, she's unable to do that because wild zones keep getting added each time she turns around. This is also why she ropes us in to help with research. But the key thing here is what's left unsaid, but that can be inferred from what she says. As she can't survey or study the zones, and especially because she sees more wild zones every time she turns around, we can pretty safely say she is not informed of the next steps of the redevelopment plan. Sure, her past probably had something to do with this, but hell, despite working for Team Flare, she was damn good at what she did. So much so that the Kalos authorities acknowledged her skill set and gave her acting director position in the whole region's Pokemon research lab as punishment, or perhaps penance, for her past. Like, she was chosen as the successor to Sycamore. Those are some big shoes to fill. So with her potentially being the best Pokemon expert in the whole damn region, regardless of her past, she should have been informed of progress updates in the urban redevelopment plan, especially in regards to new wild zones. To play devil's advocate, one might argue that perhaps Quasartico and the mayor didn't inform Mabel because, well, it wouldn't matter. Something was attracting wild Pokemon to the city anyway, and the wild zones would need to be established regardless of whether or not Mabel agreed, so why bother? While that is a valid point, it has an equally valid answer. You'd bother because while Mabel may not be able to stop the wild zones from being formed, she would at least be able to potentially direct the city officials about which areas would minimize potential risk to the citizens. And as we're gonna see, there's a bit in terms of risk there, yeah. The point is, how can you make a decision like where to stick wild Pokemon if you don't understand their behavior? So yeah, keeping her in the loop would have been important to achieve a better rate of success with coexistence. However, the fact that she wasn't kept in the loop leads us to a more harrowing realization. If Lumios's leading Pokemon expert was not kept informed about the changes to the city, how much was the general populace, seemingly less important to the development of the project, informed? Well, I can unfortunately answer that, not much at all. There are a few ways to observe the lack of information. One of them is through your own experience as a player. Did you ever notice or see anywhere that told you when the next wild zones would be added and where? Or did you just exit Hotel Z and get a pop-up saying, hey, new wild zones are available? Because personally, I had no idea until the game told me they were up. Now I hear you saying, well, that's just a gameplay feature designed to surprise and reward the player, it makes sense for it to be a surprise. And, well, sure, right you are. It certainly feels great to walk into the streets and see a bunch of new places to explore. Heck, I may even be a dumbass and have missed somewhere obvious in the game that tells us exactly where the next wild zones will appear. But even being somewhat charitable and conceding both of these points, we can still see that the populace lacks information about the urban redevelopment plan via their own testimonies. At least from my experiences, when one is not given enough information about something that directly affects them, they tend to distrust whoever is in charge or come up with their own explanation regarding the missing facts, which leads to unfounded rumors being spread. By talking to the people in the city, we can actively see this happening. One person, for example, claims that the urban redevelopment plan was adopted because the mayor forced it through. Another person on the distrust side of things pretty much says they distrust Quasartico because they are a foreign company. And heck, this person outright states there is no communication between the society and Quasartico, as he claims that people's complaints are simply ignored. And getting into something a bit more spoilery here, so if you want to avoid it, skip like 30 seconds, I don't know. At one point in the story, you witness a small crowd revolving around Quasartico's CEO, Jet, demanding answers about the redevelopment project. So, now that we've established that the lack of information is pretty much a proven fact, what consequences arise from this? Well, turns out a lot of them. The first and perhaps main thing I want to point out is how much it inconveniences the citizens of Lumiose, and that's aside from the whole distrust thing I mentioned. Rather, these are consequences from the lack of information that also inspire distrust. Picture this. You have to get to work every single day at 9 AM. You usually leave your house at like 8:30 AM because you know the path you have to take and you know you can get there with 10 minutes to spare. That's how it's been for years, and that's how you expect it to keep, well, being. But then one day you wake up, get into your car, drive, and 10 minutes before you get to your job, you run into a holographic green wall that was most definitely not there the day prior. Your path to work has turned into a wild zone, and inside you see a pack of wild pyroers waiting for the next snack. You then have a choice. Either you go through the zone anyway, run over some pyroers and potentially get your vehicle all banged up, or you find another way to your job and thus end up getting to work late. And I'm not even going to talk about what would happen if your job ends up inside the wild zone right next to the pack of pyros. Some things are best left undescribed. The scenario I just described though, that's pretty much how life in Lumio City seems to be. And heck, if you don't believe me, just look at what the people themselves have to say. This one student, for example, is worried about having to find a new path to school, while this guy is understandably lamenting that more wild zones means more detours to be had. So yeah, that's what I mean by inconveniences. This is precisely the sort of consequence that might have been minimized with proper research. You know, if Mabel had been involved. Both this would be improved and the actual planning of the wild zones, which is a topic I'm gonna get to shortly. I think the most egregious example of people getting screwed over by wild zones suddenly appearing has got to be this one taxi driver I alluded to a few times already. For the purposes of this video, I got a map of Lumios with its wild zones, and with my insane Photoshop skills, overlaid all the possible battle zones to put everything that can possibly block paths and change people's routines in a single image. Now let's take a look at this particular street on the top right part of the image. You can already see that the street is sandwiched between two wild zones. Wild Zone 6, which has an aggressive Alpha Houndoom and its pack of Houndours, I hope I pronounced that right, I never quite understood how to pronounce this Pokemon's name, and Wild Zone 15 with very angry Beedrills and other bugs and ghosts. Now, imagine you're hanging out at your usual spot right above Zone 6 when suddenly Wild Zone 15 comes into being. Or heck, even if you live there and have a car. Suddenly, your vehicle is stuck between two wild zones full of very aggressive Pokemon, and that's precisely what happened to this poor cabbie. But I hear you saying, well, that's easy to fix, the guy can just take the streets in between Zone 6 and 15 that connect to the one he's at. Which, you know, fair point, that's precisely what I thought, until I noticed something. Let's take a look at the map again. Do you notice anything? For example, the fact that all the other ways that could be used to exit this area all have obligatory stairways, which in turn makes it impossible for a car to go through. Yeah, rough situation for the guy. However, not all hope is lost. See, in this area between Zone 6 and 15, there is a gate that allows you to exit Lumios, so thankfully this guy can just go out the gate and use another gate to access other areas of the city. Well, except that we have access to the full Kalos map, and we know the one gate the cab driver can use to exit the area he's stuck in has only one direction he could go, which leads to another city. And that city does not connect to Lumios either, it instead connects to yet another city, which only then loops back to Lumios. So basically, if this dude doesn't want to take his cab through wild zones full of aggressive Pokemon, his only option is to drive through two different cities before reaching another part of Lumios. And if he lives in this area that's isolated, he might as well sell his car or move, because he might just spend more money in car repairs or fuel than he'll earn working as a taxi driver. It really depends on how much damage and distance he has to cover. So really, effectively, this guy is stranded, which is simply hilarious to me. Of course, in the actual gameplay this isn't reflected, as the guy can drive us anywhere, including to inside wild zones, but it's like I said, I'm looking at this from a lore perspective, not from a gameplay one. And even if lore-wise this guy is super brave and can easily make his way through the wild zones, I guarantee a lot of people won't be able to. We did see, after all, that many citizens are quite scared of Pokemon, so do you think they'd be able to drive through packs of aggressive Pokemon? Unlikely. Plus, we know the areas that were previously full of life become almost devoid of humans as soon as they turn into wild zones, which serves as even more proof that a lot of people avoid the wild zones. And to be fair, when you have a guy whose hobby is to literally rescue people who've been laid out by wild Pokemon, yeah, I can't say I blame people for wanting to stay far away from the wild zones. So yeah, all this to say that lack of information is a huge hassle for people's daily routines. But it gets even worse and honestly dips into quite dangerous territory when you consider that there is seemingly no city infrastructure adjustment for the wild zones, showing a terrible lack of planning on the mayor's part and honestly a willingness to harm the citizens, whether intentional or not. If you're wondering what I mean, look no further than the electrical substation. Maybe halfway through the game, it becomes a wild zone for mostly steel and electric type Pokemon. It actually fits thematically, and I cannot imagine a better place for Lyrons, Helioptiles, and Drillburs. Like seriously, props to Quasartico and the mayor for this stroke of genius. There is just one tiny, ridiculously inconsequential nitpick that I would like to bring here because, you know, I'm annoying like that. How the hell can anyone run an electrical substation when they keep getting attacked by wild Pokemon? And here's what's worse, there are a lot of equipment out there in the open and like, have you seen Lyron and Onix? These two don't exactly strike me as very delicate Pokemon, to put it mildly, so I can already picture millions of Pokédollars in repairs will be added to the monthly city budget. Now, I don't know the details of what an electrical substation does, but it sounds pretty damn important, doesn't it? The kind of thing you wouldn't want to leave unattended, especially with a bunch of wild Pokemon that can destroy the whole facility in a matter of minutes. Yet, thanks to poor planning coming from the powers that be, that's exactly what Lumio's citizens are forced to deal with. And even if I'm wrong and an electrical substation isn't actually that relevant to some cities, trust me, that was just one example. Early on in the game, you get a quest to recover a ring that an old lady lost in the graveyard. The quest was memorable to me not because of the goal, which was basically a glorified fetch quest, but rather because of what the lady says after we give her the ring. She says she was visiting a loved one's grave when a wild Pokemon jumped out of nowhere, scaring her, making her take a tumble and lose the ring. Now, I don't really think I need to tell you all about why old ladies shouldn't be taking tumbles, right? She even rightfully complains that she would have never lost her ring if not for the nonsense that is turning the cemetery into a wild zone. And honestly, I agree. Is it thematically fitting for ghost types? Yeah. Does little Timmy deserve to visit his grandma's grave without getting licked by a bunch of Ghastly? Also yes, and this absolutely takes precedence over the ghost types having a location they like. And guys, I'm not even getting into the whole realm of possibilities where Pokemon accidentally destroy graves. Only thing worse than little Timmy being unable to visit his grandma without getting harassed by Ghastly is little Timmy being unable to visit his grandma because her grave was destroyed and the whole damn body exhumed by wildlife. So yeah, honestly, the mayor and Quasartico kinda are putting people in danger. This really shouldn't be happening. And if you thought the sheer incompetence on display couldn't be worse, well, I have news for you, it does get worse. And yes, what I'm about to say are still consequences from the lack of information provided, or, you know, not provided by Quasartico. We need to talk about the battle zones. These were actually one of the main things that inspired me to make this video. Specifically, this guy that ended up trapped within a battle zone because it randomly showed up and boxed him in a mall with no way out, as for some reason the mall is protected from the carnage of the battle zones via protective barriers that block the way in. Or, in this case, unfortunately for this guy, the way out. Seeing this guy lament from inside the mall because he would be stuck all night was just really damn funny, honestly. Am I a horrible person? I might be. I would say this guy has one hell of a complaint to file with Quasartico HQ, but apparently Quasartico ignores feedback, so, well, tough luck, buddy. Seriously though, can you imagine the many safety problems that such a measure causes? For example, if the mall catches fire, what the heck can the guy stuck there do? Just succumb to the flames? The shops are all seemingly closed as well, so is the guy just supposed to go hungry all night? What if he misses an important meeting because he was stuck at the mall? Will Jet call their boss to explain the situation? Because I'm pretty sure that if the person got to work late, saying, "Sorry boss, I was stuck at the mall," will absolutely not fly as an excuse. Though I guess the boss might find the sheer gall amusing, at the very least. Silver linings, right? And perhaps the worst part is that fixing this would not have been hard at all. All that Quasartico would have had to do would be communicate where the damn battle zones will be. And also add some emergency exits or something. That'd be nice to, you know, prevent deaths and stuff. And yeah, we do know that they don't communicate where the battle zones will be, as, you know, aside from the guy that's stuck, our rival is very shocked at the beginning of the game when the very street we're standing in turns into a battle zone. I guess there's still the chance of the rival just not having seen a previous announcement about the battle zone area, but I am choosing not to believe that because then I can't use it to further build my case for this video. Hey, at least I'm being honest. Another big issue with the battle zones is their rules. They're just not properly planned at all. The main issue here is that everyone inside a battle zone is expected to be a trainer. No matter who you are or what you're doing, chances are you will not be hurt if you're attacked until the very moment you fail to send out a Pokemon to fight and get close combated by a Heracross or something. And if you do have a Pokemon but you're not a trainer, like you're just walking your pet Furfrou or something and a battle zone shows up around you, well, you have like 30 seconds to learn how to fight. If you think I'm exaggerating, take a look at the beginning of the game. This complaint of mine is mostly based on our introduction to the battle zones when we are with our rival. A battle zone shows up, our rival urges us to get out ASAP, and we are attacked by trainers without them even verifying if we have a Pokemon or, you know, if we are in the Royale. The tournament really is a free-for-all, bystanders be damned. If you live or work inside a battle zone and are not a trainer, well, you better be really good at sneaking around. And I'm pretty sure the town hall and other, you know, seemingly important spots can turn into battle zones, so oof. But that's not the only rule that's problematic. The whole "the Royale takes place at night" thing is also problematic simply because it lasts the entire night. If you're an adult, sure, whatever, it's up to you to ruin your sleep schedule and your whole damn life. I do that without even having a Z-A Royale to participate in. I mean, ruining my sleep schedule, not my life. I haven't managed that yet. Hopefully I won't. But the problem is there's also kids in the Royale, and some of them, after being defeated, mentioned something along the lines of being screwed because they stayed up all night again. Where are your parents, kid? And yeah, it goes without saying that sleep is super important to the development of a child, so staying up potentially multiple nights fighting is really not a good thing. And last but certainly not least, the game can have 3 battle zones active every night. On top of that, you have 20 wild zones that have Pokemon every single day and night. This means that on top of the 20 areas that have limited access, every night 3 more areas of the city become dangerous. At that point, I'd wager that for a common citizen, walking around Lumiose kinda becomes one of those games of Labyrinth where you have to trace your way to the exit. It makes for a very amusing thing to mentally picture, but in lore, I'm guessing it's a hassle. Well, I think I've gotten to the end of my talking points regarding the benefits and hilarious downsides to the redevelopment plan. So, after all this, I think the question that remains is the one that inspired me to make this video to begin with. Can the redevelopment plan actually work? And I think my answer here will be an enthusiastic yes. In fact, a lot of things can work, provided they are correctly implemented. But can the redevelopment plan work as it currently is? Well, that's a lot more complicated to answer. See, the urban redevelopment plan brings a lot of good to the table, revitalizing a city tainted by Team Flare's legacy and sending to the world a message that Kalos is moving on, and rising from the ashes, per se. But as much as it does good, I have to say that, after analyzing the downsides of the plan, living in Lumiose as a citizen must be challenging to say the least. So, in order for the urban redevelopment plan to properly work, I see some fundamental changes that need to be made. First, and the main one, is transparency. Quasartico and the mayor need to communicate with the populace about wild zones and battle zones and where they're gonna show up, well in advance. I understand that wild zones are difficult to organize and, properly communicate on because nobody can control where and when a batch of wild Pokemon will show up. But even if the wild zones are being set up as soon as a group of dangerous mons shows up in order to contain them, there is no reason for the zone to be permanent. Moving them would allow for critical city infrastructure, like, say, a damn electrical substation, to be preserved. You might be asking yourself, well, but how are they gonna move a bunch of wild Pokemon? And truth be told, I have no clue, but it's not our job to figure this out. It's the mayor's and Quasartico's. They have actual holotech that allows them to essentially create a wall of holograms to be both physical and tangible, so I am pretty sure that they can figure out a way to move wild Pokemon safely. The point is, the powers that be need to put in work to actually manage to organize everything so that they can be transparent about it all, because honestly, it's unacceptable for even the acting director of the Pokemon Research Lab to be kept out of the loop on something this major. And this is all regarding the wild zones. There's no excuse for the battle zones. Those are all under Quasartico's control and people are still getting locked up inside malls. Another thing that needs to be changed and introduced to the population is, well, education. A lot of people are afraid and distrustful of Pokemon, and I feel like providing proper education about the subject is the way to go towards mending the situation. People won't need to feel so unsafe if they are trained on how to behave around wild species, how to traverse their territory, how to interact with Pokemon, etc. Heck, even the battle zone issue of people attacking each other without even checking if they are proper target can be solved, or perhaps minimized, through education. I feel like a class on, basic human decency and why you're not meant to simply attack people without doing your due diligence first would go a long way to help correct these bunch of savages. Those are the two big things I feel would help a lot with properly executing the plan, but honestly, there are way more ideas that could help. One example would be to properly plan the battle zones and choose strategic locations that won't be too much of a hassle for citizens. Another example, and this one's huge, is to involve representatives of key groups in the redevelopment plan. Like, if you want to turn the electrical substation into a wild zone, it would be great to first check with the electrical engineers and workers of the substation about whether or not this can be done safely and how. Even if the solution is to give strong repels to every worker, which will likely be a challenge considering they are not sold in Lumios, the one city that would benefit the most from the repels. The mayor could involve representatives of organizations that work for the public and work to minimize their daily routine hassles that arise from the plan. Well, the list of possibilities goes on, but I'll stop myself here as I think you got the message. The urban redevelopment plan can work, and it has the potential to be an amazing thing. Hell, in my opinion, it already is. But in order to reach its full potential, key changes would be needed. But now, that all being said, I want to hear from you. What do you think of the redevelopment plan? Did you notice anything good or bad that I haven't mentioned, or do you disagree with any of my points? If yes to any of that, or if you just want to leave a word of support, feel free to drop a comment down below. Reading what you all have to say is genuinely my favorite part of creating videos. And on that note, I'm done. This was longer than I expected, but this was genuinely a lot of fun to talk about. Just to really hammer the point home, these are not issues with the actual game in my opinion. None of this impacts gameplay, and in fact, some of what we talked about was likely done to help the gameplay. This was just me exploring a topic that's ultimately inconsequential, but still a lot of fun. Yes, I find nitpicking fun. Am I the only one? Anyway, if you liked the video and want more, feel free to check out my playlist of Pokemon videos down below in the description. There are quite a few of them, and in fact, a mere 2 weeks ago, I uploaded my first Legends Z-A video where I talk about the dialogue in the game. You should check it out, it's a great video, though, of course I would say that since I created the damn thing, so feel free to be the judge of that. Anyway, that's about it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you hopefully in the next video. Bye bye!